Now, economist Milton Friedman understood that the government school monopoly was a problem before the rest of us did. In 1955, Friedman proposed school vouchers. Instead of spending $13,000 per child on government schools, that's what America spends on average today. Instead of just giving that money to the bureaucrats and then assigning kids to schools based on where they live, he said attach the money to the kid. Let the child and his family choose which school to attend. Then the schools would compete for that money, and competition would improve all the schools. His idea was ignored for decades, but now there are voucher experiments in many states. And this year in Indiana, all low-income families can use a voucher to escape the government monopoly. Patrick Byrne now chairs the Friedman Foundation for Education Choice. And he also knows plenty about competition because he's the CEO of Overstock.com, the internet company that buys, well, overstock stuff that companies can't sell and resells it cheap to people. And your point is that everybody wants choice, and that includes education?
Right. That's just fundamental purpose of a monopoly. The reason business guys try to get monopolies, the whole point of getting monopoly is to sell an inferior product at a high price. It doesn't change anything when a monopoly happens to be owned and managed by the state, by the government. It's still in the business of delivering really an inferior product at a high price. We're spending $700 billion, this country is, on educating 50 million kids. It's $13,000, $14,000 per child. Our results are at the bottom of the industrialized world. And that's our future. If we're educating kids to the same level as, you know, I don't want to name a country, but Albania, say, there's no reason to think our standard of living is going to be better than them in the long run.
In Albania's, I hope it still is, but you argue that K-12 education is the least innovative major industry in America.
Right.
Because of lack of competition.
Well, yeah, it's, if somebody came from 150 years ago and went to many classrooms today, they would really recognize what's going on. There's safety in just sticking with the old system. And so it's really, you can't think of another industry in America which has been less innovative than government education. All
right, so vouchers to create innovation. It is startling if you do the math. At $13,000 per kid, that means more than $200,000 per classroom. You'd think, wow, let's compete to get that money, and schools would be very innovative. And yet, what if somebody says, okay, I'll take the voucher money and we'll start the Al-Qaeda school of Sharia law?
Right. The madrasa problem. The problem with the madrasa is I'd first ask, would you do that? Would anyone in the audience send their child to the Al-Qaeda school? So why do you worry so much about freedom? And if people had the ability to choose, they would make this choice you disapprove.
Well, you don't think you'd have some religious fanatics who would do that, and then the taxpayer would have to help support that?
Well, I heard Rose Friedman's bride was once asked that, and she said, this country could survive a few madrasas. But I'm not, that's a really trusted...
I think her point was that it wouldn't be as bad as the urban school systems we have now.
Right, which are...
And parents want their kids to succeed in America.
But I actually think that the risk of parents sending their kids to some fanatic school system where they teach that the earth is flat, I think that's really an overstated risk.
Now, one other thing people don't like about vouchers is that it might perpetuate inequality. Rich people would take their voucher and have an even richer private school.
They have it exactly backwards. I think this is the civil rights issue of the 21st century, vouchers and school choice. The average private school in America, K through 8, is $5,000. The 9 through 12 is $7,000. We tend to think of private schools as being dramatically more expensive.
This is what private schools charge.
That's what private schools charge. So really, if the state is spending $13,000 or $14,000 and they just gave you a voucher for $7,000, and you could go out and afford...
So the voucher is worth half what the state is spending on its schools.
So the state saves money. You get more money left behind per child in the government school. So everybody in the situation is better off, except, of course, the guild, the union.
One country has vouchers, Chile. And I thought it would be a big success, but they have riots now in Chile because they are so upset that some kids are taking their vouchers and going to better schools. And the protesters want to abolish all private schools. People don't like are uncomfortable with free choice.
Yes, let's abolish the Lexus and the Cadillac and the Fords and just sell Trabants. There are always people who are going to be in favor of let's just have the government and the government run a monopoly and so forth. But you know why? I'm sure there were people in East Germany who didn't want to see anything but Trabants delivered.
Well, thank you, Patrick Byrne. I just want to ask you one last question. What's with the suit? Is this overstock?
No, I'm going with the Chinese look these days. This is a Maoist business suit. Do you like it?
Yes, I will say yes. Thank you, Patrick Byrne. Next, we meet a guy who went from being an anti-charter school union boss to running a charter school. How's that possible?